Welcome to the GCN Tech Show.
This week we've got a bumper hot tech special with women's-specific shorts, cranks from space, anti-theft devices and bionic gloves.
And we've also got the brand new Campagnolo Bora Ultra WTO wheel set. Quite possibly the most cutting-edge and desirable wheels on the planet. But first up, let's take a look at last week's poll.
Where we asked you, thanks to tech, are you now faster despite getting older than you were 10 years ago? And a resounding yes, people are faster and more aero now. Go tech, 40% of people, which, although 32%, still quite a sizable amount.
Just said they're older and slower.
Yeah, but 27% say balanced out. So, yeah, I mean, we're looking at 67% of the audience are the same as they were or faster, which is great news.
Campagnolo have just released their latest wheel set called the Bora Ultra WTO, a cutting-edge wheel set that really does highlight the fact that even though Campag is one of the oldest cycling brands in the world, they're still at the forefront of tech and innovation.
Absolutely, and eagle-eyed viewers may have actually spotted these wheels before because they were sneakily used by Caleb Ewan to win stage 7 of the UAE Tour, and Van Avermaet and Pogacar have both been using them in their classics campaigns. So they've certainly been out in the wild for a while. The headlines are that they're a tubeless ready wheel set with a hooked rim, not hookless. They're disc brake only, available in 3 depths, 33, 45 and 60 millimeters, and they feature the trademark G3 spoke lacing, which is both functional, it's very good under load, and looks mint.
These are Campag's top-end wheels, so the very best of the very best. And something else is very interesting to see is that for such a traditional and iconic company, they're not going to offer these in a rim brake model at all, or a tubular version, which is something that the pros quite often like to use.
Yeah, certainly looking towards the future.
So on to the finer details of these wheels. Firstly, Campagnolo have done things with nipples that you couldn't even begin to imagine.
The Aero Momag nipples on the... Yeah. So a while ago, engineers determined that one of the things that slows wheels down is rotational drag. This is different from the drag you experience when you're riding along. It's defined as the drag generated within the wheel. So to explain it, if you just had a wheel in my hand right now and I spun it, it's not moving in any direction, but the drag that would eventually cause it to slow down, one of the forces is rotational drag. And different constituents of rotational drag are the spokes and also external nipples. And that's why we started to see engineers putting internal nipples on wheels to try and reduce ever so slightly that rotational drag and optimize the wheels aerodynamically.
However, internal spoke nipples do have a couple of downsides to them. They are a point of stress within the wheel, aren't they? Sort of the angle that they sit within the rim bed, and also the fact that to adjust them and gain access to them, you've got to remove the tyres completely off of the wheel and then remove the rim tape as well. So it's a bit of a pain, isn't it?
Yeah, it can be a right faff. So Campagnolo has come up with this really clever design that aims to overcome these issues by creating a stronger seat for that internal spoke that they reckon also better orientates the spoke, so then it can be better laced to create a stronger, stiffer wheel. But they also reckon it's more resistant to corrosion and long-term fatigue because it is stronger.
Crucially, these spoke nipples are adjustable externally using a specially supplied tool.
The wheels have been aerodynamically optimised, not just with the rim profile and rim shape and the internal nipples, but also the size and shape of the hubs has been looked at as well, and the spokes are aerodynamic too.
Things like the specially designed spokes and the nipples are worth around 1 watt of rotational drag at 45 kilometers an hour, which might not sound like much, but in pursuit of trying to make the very best wheel set possible, this is the kind of level of detail that you've got to go to. And the bar is set pretty high at the moment, isn't it?
It has. I mean, Campagnolo has benchmarked itself against what it regards to be the fastest, most aero wheel out there at the moment, which is the Swiss side Hadron 485. And, well, here is a graph.
I love a graph. Incidentally, WTO stands for Wind Tunnel Optimised, and Campagnolo's data suggests that when compared against the Hadron 485, the 45mm WTOs are comparable. And interestingly, it even suggests that at your angle of 15 degrees, the 45mm WTO could outperform the Hadron 485.
Yeah, and Campagnolo is keen to stress and point out that their wheels and aerodynamic development has been optimised for real-world outside conditions and not to perform well in a wind tunnel. Yeah. And this is because, according to their analyses, typically when we're riding outside, we encounter yaw angles between 10 and 20 degrees 80% of the time, meaning that sort of 15-degree mark is really important.
Slap bang in the middle. Now, as for why they're tubeless only, Campagnolo has done some modelling and experiments on this. Interestingly enough, we've got another chart.
This is really cool. So they've modelled two different scenarios, a climb time trial, which is 20 kilometres long, and also a hilly stage, which is 150 kilometres with 50 kilometres of climbing at an average gradient of 5%. In the climb time trial, the average gradient is 8%, as you can see here. Now, for a 70 kilogram rider as well, riding at roughly 3 watts per kilo. Now, they reckon that compared to a tubular wheel set, one of their top-end tubular wheel sets previously, on the climb, you're going to save 1 minute 25.
Oh.
On the hilly stage, 7 minutes 18.
7 minutes?
Yeah. And that's
18 as well.
And that's despite the fact that the tubular wheel set is lighter. Now, considerably lighter. Yeah. Now, this is a combination of the far better rolling resistance, massively out-trumping the weight of a tubeless system versus a tubular. And the other reason is just slight improvements in the aerodynamic design of the wheels as well.
They have worked hard on these wheels, haven't they?
But then, they've compared their previous wheels as well, and you can see a slight improvement over them. But for me, the big standout thing is the massive improvement of tubeless over tubular, and that's why we're starting to see pros switch to tubeless.
I keep banging on about tubeless tyres.
Yeah, I know. You do, to be fair.
Yeah, I do. Campag's new top-end wheels still feature cup and cone bearings, though.
Yeah, it's quite interesting that Shimano swears by cup and cone bearings as well.
Whereas every other wheelset brand seems to use a sealed cartridge bearing. I mean, that in itself is a pretty interesting topic of conversation, something we could do a future video on even. But these aren't any old cup and cone bearings, are they? These feature Colt ceramic bearings, which are said to have 40% less drag than a standard sealed cartridge bearing.
Yeah, get this, right? So when they say that they spin them up to 78 kilometers an hour and then do a spin down test, and the Colt ceramic bearings apparently take 2 hours and 45 minutes to reach a standstill.
That's insane.
That is mental.
Yeah.
It's proper smooth. Yeah. And especially like when they compare it to a standard steel cartridge bearing, that takes just 30 minutes in the same test apparently. That's crazy.
That is mad. Which leads us on to our poll. Which rim depth would you choose if you were going to have these brand new Campag WTO wheels?
Which depth's the best?
Would you have the 33s, the 45 or the 60mm ones?
What do you go for?
But I would have the 60s. I think they look cool as hell.
45s for me.
Yeah? All rounder?
Yeah.
Head over to the GCN app and let us know which wheels you choose. What bit of hot tech have we got next?
UltraLock.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, nifty bit of gadge this. It's an anti-theft device that very discreetly and smartly just slots underneath your bottle cage. That's very discreet. And it sounds an alarm should someone try to
linked to your smartphone. So if you're in the cafe, you'll get a notification that someone's fiddling with your bike, or worst of all, they could be running off with it.
There you go. Oh, like that. So yeah, it's got a movement sensor in it, which means that yes, if someone just slightly vibrates the system, then it'll ping you a notification, so you can just check and have a look, get eyes on the bike, check no one's nicking it.
You can lock and unlock it using the smartphone app.
The alarm's sounding. Can you just?
Oh, let me just turn this off.
Oh, thanks.
You beat me to it.
Right. So this is the device. It also has both, well, GPS tracking and Wi-Fi as well. So what that means is if someone steals your bike, the worst happens, you can track it down.
Like good accuracy with that.
Yes, and having the Wi-Fi tracking on there as well is really important, because in places where you don't necessarily get a GPS signal, it can use Wi-Fi networks in the surrounding area to determine its locations. Clever stuff.
Pretty incredible and interesting. I've got a couple of little specs for you here. 50 grams the weight of this thing. Battery life is about a month and a half, and it's got a little rechargeable battery within the unit itself, which you can charge just using a USB-C cable.
Yes. Well, the best bit, it's aero too.
Oh, nice.
I mean, I wasn't expecting them to do this, but they aero tested it and deduced that it has a CDA penalty of just 0.00062, which is, well, less than 0.01 kilometers per hour at 45 kilometers an hour, so basically nothing.
It's not going to slow you down, is it? Pretty cool. Next up, we've got some bionic half-finger road cycling gloves with DreamPad technology.
I mean, don't get too excited. They've definitely oversold it with the name.
This is a brand new glove released by sports company Hillerick and Bradsby, and this is a fingerless glove designed for road cyclists. And it's designed to alleviate hand numbness that is quite common amongst road cyclists. And it does this by using specially strategically placed, patented pressure relieving pads called DreamPad technology.
It is. I mean, they've worked with hand specialists to design these gloves, and the idea is that they relieve pressure on the ulnar nerve while riding. This is something that can be a problem for quite a lot of riders. They can experience hand numbness and pain, and so it's designed to relieve that. I'd also be particularly interested to see, how ultra endurance riders get on with this and what they would make of it, because something I've learned from watching GCN Plus documentaries, such as Mark Beaumont's films, is that, like things that ordinarily don't affect you start to affect you when you're doing ultra endurance. One of them is hand pain and comfort.
If it's just anything that can help people be a little bit more comfy on their bikes, then it's a great thing, isn't it?
Even though I have to say, when I read the title, I was expecting some kind of Terminator, RoboCop, gauntlets of death, but it's still good. Yeah.
Next up, Endura have made some new women's-specific bib shorts, the Pro SL Women's.
Yeah, and Endura reckons that little has been done to solve the issue of comfort for women when sat on bikes, and that women are more likely to suffer discomfort when sitting on a bicycle. So they've teamed up with Phil Burt, who was the head physiotherapist for Team GB across 3 Olympic cycles, and was also head physiotherapist for Team Sky too. He
was also a member of the Secret Squirrel Club, which are behind a lot of the technology that was one of the keys to Team GB's track cycling dominance.
So they set about doing loads of research and consulting lots of experts and women to create better shorts and pads. And the first thing that Burt points out is that women's pelvises are different to men's, are typically wider, and this can result in them sitting on a bike differently, where they have to engage their glutes more to stabilise their pelvis on the saddle, and then this can result in them actually rotating their pelvis and putting more pressure on the soft tissues. And then they consulted gynecologists who told them that women actually have 9 different anatomies. Well, there are 9 different types of anatomy for women downstairs, whereas if you compare this to men,
just the one.
We just have one. And there isn't the range of saddles and shorts out there on the market to cater for women's needs at the moment.
To try and address some of these issues, they've looked at areas of industries outside of the cycling world. So industries such as aerospace, medical industry, and also the military. And Burt has used these sort of areas of expertise because in those areas, if the technology doesn't work, then quite simply, people will die.
Yeah, that's a good mantra.
Yeah,
I like that approach. Now, what they actually looked at was in the medical field, people who use prosthetic limbs. People who've had amputations, because that contact point of where the stump of a limb goes into the prosthetic limb is like a crucial area for comfort, right? And they found that silicone elastomers were being used to alleviate those pressure points. And they then started to develop their pads using silicone elastomers and found that these were far better at distributing pressure and providing comfort than the traditional foams that we've seen used in chamois pads in the past. I mean, I think this is really interesting.
It's super interesting.
A great application of the technology. They then, of course, have refined the shorts further. The core is the silicon elastomer pad, but then they've refined the shape, the size of it, and then all the seam placement around it, and come up with what they hope is a short that is far better suited to women.
As I said earlier, like anything to help make people more comfortable on the bike, it can only be a good thing, can't it?
Yeah, and it's great to see people doing women-specific tech as well.
Oh, yeah. Up next, we've got the Foothill Trainer Tray.
Yeah, I'm a fan of this, I think it's a simple little idea that solves a problem that I experience when riding indoors.
Yeah, so it's a neat little tray, which actually has a quarter-turn mount, similar to many common head units that you'll find, so it can just click into place.
Either Garmin or Wahoo.
Yeah, on the mount that you've already got on your bike, so you don't need any additional mounts and brackets cluttering up your handlebars. Then once this is in place, you can put all of the little items that you just want easy access to when you're on the indoor trainer. So it could be your phone, the television remote, or if you're really fancy, you can have a fan with a remote as well.
Snacks of the week.
Snacks of the week. But crucially, you don't want to overload this tray with super heavy stuff. It's just designed for those small little items that you want
Easy to
access
reach.
Yeah, that's it. But make sure you don't leave it on your bike when you go outside. It does specifically say that it's not designed to be used outside.
Which field do you reckon inspired this product? Aerospace, military, or medical?
I'm really hoping it's military, yeah.
Yeah, me too. Next, we've got Boone's aluminium cranks. Now, if you were designing some cranks to go on a bicycle of the future and you lived in 1950s America, maybe Roswell, then this is what you'd come up with, I reckon.
God, they look like they're something out of a sci-fi film or Back to the Future, but these cranks are made by Boone Technologies in Georgia, so in the USA. And the cranks are said to weigh just 245 grams per crank arm. They're available in a crank length of 175 millimeters long and have a 30 millimeter axle. And they come in at $495 for these cranks. And they also make some super tasty titanium chainrings too. So if you want to add those into the sort of crank package as such, that's going to cost you an additional $175.
Yeah, look cool, don't they?
They do look super cool. Lastly this week, BikeMo has launched an interactive bike theft tracking heat map app. And this combines sort of population data and police data to report the best and worst cases for bike theft within England and Wales.
Yeah, interesting. And the aggregated data suggests that bike thefts are actually down. So they report 74,500 bike thefts in 2020 across England and Wales, down from 83,500 in 2019. So despite the boom in cycling through COVID, it's good to see bike thefts might not be as high.
It's a free-to-use tool, so it's available for anyone to download, and it's a great indicator of areas that are sort of got problems with bike theft or areas that are maybe particularly a little bit safer.
Yeah, the data sort of gates and then shows the hot spots of bike crime, so you can be vigilant. Although I have to say, looking at the data, I'm not totally convinced by its reliability, because it suggests that Manchester and Salford and Stockport are the safest places with regards to bike crime. Just one bike stolen in Salford in 2020.
I saw in 2020 that only 5 bikes have been stolen in Manchester.
Yeah, I used to live in Manchester, right? And I will go on record as saying that I don't believe only 5 bikes were stolen in Manchester last year. I'd find that it's astonishing if that's true.
That's insane. I tell you what, there's only one thing we can do. We're going to have to get Ted Hastings and AC12 onto this, because we're going to have an internal investigation into bike theft and just see if there's any corruption in this industry.
We'll see if Manchester Police Department's bike crime stats are actually true.
I mean, it's the only logical way to look at this.
Yeah, although Chris Boardman is in charge of bikes and stuff up in Manchester now.
I mean, he's doing good stuff.
Yeah, so maybe that's why the crime's so low. Don't know. Cha-ching! It's now time for Screw Riding Upgrades by Upgrades, where you submit evidence of the upgrades you've made to your bike's equipment or cycling lives for the chance to win the ultimate prize.
A GCN water bottle, of course.
Yeah, now, without further ado, let's see what we had last week.
So last week we had Mark Holland 8 and his Trek Multitrack up against Sean Emsurd's Steel Stallion, and taking 63% of the votes as Sean Emsurd with his Steel Stallion. Good work.
Yes, both fine upgrades. Well done, Sean Emsurd. Get in contact on Facebook and we'll get your bottle out to you. Who have we got this week?
Right, first up this week we have got Toby 1, or or Toby1 Kenobi.
Toby-Wan Kenobi, yeah.
Yeah, maybe that. He says he's bought an old Universal Rapid Reactor for £25 on Facebook Marketplace. God, what a bargain.
Yeah.
Stripped the bike back to the bare frame, resprayed it turquoise colour, replaced the bottom bracket, the headset and the chain with new and used components. And he's raided through the parts bin for a lot of that stuff. Ultegra cranks, 1x setup, and some 35C tyres for comfort, both on and off-road.
Fine choices.
Yeah, fine choice. I do like these ones where everyone strips the paint right back.
Yeah.
These, I like the fact that everyone's going through a lot of effort for these.
It's made it look so much better than that. It was just like like an old kind of mountain bike.
Guy, a real old school.
Many of us had in the sort of 90s.
I gotta say, it reminds me of a bike I would have had as a kid.
Yeah, I had one like that.
Round the park, doing the jumps, trying to think that I was cool.
Yeah.
But I clearly wasn't.
Yeah, well, it's not going to be, I mean, it's a fine upgrade, but it's not going to be plain sailing because he's up against Carl in San Diego. That's his username.
Ah, I'd have pronounced that totally wrong.
Carlin.
I'll have called
He's
him
up against Carlin.
Carlin's and Diego?
Carlin has raised the bar here. He's submitted the evidence in the form of video evidence.
Oh, these are the best ones.
Video evidence of his upgrade, and he's done it on a recumbent, which is great because recumbents are aero, and we like aero. So he's completely rebuilt the wheels, apparently. He's made a new seat for his recumbent from scratch. He's resprayed it, and he's added a motor at the crank.
What?
It's like an
insane.
e-bike recumbent.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine how quick this thing's going to be.
That'll fly.
And he's also put a battery shelf in there as well, moulding that into the frame. And he's made a flag which he insists is more aero than a lot of the flags out there.
Ooh, good work.
And he's swapped a SRAM Spectro internal gear hub for a fresh Sturmy Archer 3x9. And he's added XT front mech. And the gearing, he says, is a 4252 with an 1132 cassette in there. Drum brakes as well, which I found fascinating. I've not come across drum brakes on a bike before.
Well, no, not other than some cars.
Yes.
And lots of cars don't even use them anymore.
So what do you make of this?
Wow, look at this. I just love the fact when people upload videos of their upgrades.
It just reminds me of like an episode of the A-Team. It's got a real Mr. T in his workshop vibe going on about it.
Guy, it looks like an absolute rocket ship.
I'm inspired.
I feel inspired. The flag's amazing too.
Who wins? You decide. It's not up to us. Vote in the app.
It's now time for the Bike Vault, where you upload pictures of your bikes and then Ollie and I judge them to be either nice or super nice. And if they're super nice, I get the bell and I give it a nice delicate ring.
It does. You can vote on the bikes that we feature in the GCN app, and you can submit your own in the app as well to be judged and
judged by the viewers as well.
Dissected by all of us. Yes. So who have we got first this week? It's Wilson Janet with his bike, which he's called the Mona Lisa. And it is a Bianchi Specialissima. What do you make of that? In Celeste, SRM on there, biggie smalls, valves are aligned. Yeah, I mean that's a super.
That
nice,
is a super nice all day long. Good work.
Yes, very nice. Who's next?
Next up, we have got Abed.
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 Yeah.
And with their Colnago C64 disc, 2021 model. God, that's a nice
That is a beautiful bike, and it lugged. I quite like the
Nice.
the gloss and the matte. Glot, I said.
Yeah.
The gloss and the matte contrast the Colnago logo on the down tube. That's nice.
Valve's not aligned.
Super record though.
But what a bike this is.
That is a mega bike. I would say it's super nice. I like the backdrop as well. I mean, that is just Selle San Marco saddle on it.
I'm gonna definitely vote as super nice. But one
Super
thing I
nice.
just want to say. Have they carried that bike stand with them on the ride?
Yes, they should get a shadow stand.
Yeah, invest in a shadow stand.
Much easier to
Fits
carry.
in your back pocket.
Yeah.
You haven't got to cart that thing around, but super nice. Right, up next we've got TCB Horizon.
Ooh, vintage.
Oh yeah, vintage. It says
An Allen.
Allen, possibly carbon, so they're not sure if it's carbon or not. 1980s. God, that's cool.
I'm digging that. It's got. He's riding tubs as well.
Oh yeah.
Proper retro.
Not quite got his tubular valves aligned though, but I love these retro bikes.
Yeah, I'm digging that.
In fact, I took a super cool look at some retro bikes the other day, so you have to keep an eye out for that video when it comes out. What do you make of this? Nice or super nice?
Nice for me, that. It's well presented. It's got Campagnolo Delta brakes on it.
I mean, yeah, that's got to be super
Oh,
nice. isn't
yeah.
it? We're generous this week.
Oh, very nice. Right. Next up, we've got someone with a great, really catchy Username 2W3BR3A5BB. And it's their Pashley governor. What do you make of that?
Whoa, those handlebars are outrageous.
Yeah, it's kind of retro modern-y. Those like old white tyres as well. You used to see white tyres on really, really old bikes. Like these bikes in like World War I often had white tyres on them.
White tyres like that remind me of the sort of thing you'd see like cruising around on like the streets of America looking cool as hell.
I think that's super nice.
There are a few emissions with it, but it just is cool, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's a super nice.
Oh, okay, super nice it is.
Our last submission this week comes from Billy Dyer 1620 with his Boardman TT and himself as well.
Hi Billy, how's it going?
There he is. Ordinarily we don't normally have a rider and a bike in the bike vault.
But they normally allow that, no?
No, this is giving me an idea. Maybe we should rate Billy Dyer's TT position, give him some feedback.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Shall I go first?
Well, yeah, go for it.
Okay, I'll go first. So my very basic initial assessment is fairly good hand position on the bars, could maybe extend his hands slightly further, and maybe look at adjusting the angle of his TT extensions, trying to angle them up, try and bring the hands up a little bit higher.
Similar sort of thing. I think you can see by the fact that he's resting his arms on the elbow pad rather than the elbow, suggests that, yeah, he could perhaps adjust the position of his cockpit and optimise that a bit. Also, I think looking at him there, he'd stand to gain by raising his elbow pads.
Oh, okay, yeah, interesting. Trying to get that
Yeah,
sort of
because you can
praying
see his
mantis
shoulders
position
are a bit dropped, and I think if he can raise his elbow pads and bring his shoulders up, that will help him get his head in lower, a bit more like Stefan Kuhn.
Who said you needed a wind tunnel?
Yeah, and because the head position is what we'd really want to change there. I think the head's quite high, but it's a decent position.
What about the bike?
It is.
We've got to judge the bike as well.
Well, it's very nice, isn't it? I mean, the
good components.
Zip 404.
He's got a gold chain
and disc at the
right,
back.
I don't want to curse this. We've had super nices all the way through the show. I'm going to give this a super nice. Please agree with me.
That is a super nice.
Okay, great work. Super nice.
All right, well, more Bike Vault next week. Unfortunately, that's it for this week's show. Hope you've enjoyed it, and give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you have.
And if you're after treating yourself to a nice little book or anything like that, then why not consider the GCN road bike maintenance book? Because in the next week or so, I'm actually going to start a nice little mini series on our Maintenance Mondays, where we're going to take everything through from a sort of beginner level through to a competent home mechanic, and we're going to cross-reference it with the book through as the videos.
Yeah, it's like an interactive crash course in bike maintenance.
What more could you want? See you next week.